Hey girl, hey! I am Jamia Ponder, host and creator of The Mrs. Beside, a safe space dedicated to the real ones standing beside and never behind. Girl, this life ain't no joke. It's time, let's air it all out. Trust me, I understand. Whoo child, I know it's a lot. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for tuning in again on another episode of The Mrs. Beside. Today, I have the incredible Valdene Mark. So thank you so much for being here with me today, Valdene. I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me today, and I'm really excited for our chat.
I'm excited too. I'm so excited to be on your show.
Yeah, so why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody?
I'm Valdene Mark. I am a Caribbean author, and I'm so happy to be on this show.
Awesome. So for those of you, obviously none of you will know, but Valdene and I met each other again on another mutual interest group. And she's actually married to a physician and she's a mom in addition to an author. How many children do you have, Valdene?
I have 2 children.
Okay. Yep. So a mom, okay, and a wife, and all of the things. So she wears all of the hats as well. But we met at a mutual interest group, and one of the things that really struck me as phenomenal about Valdene was like one day she's like sort of a really quiet person in our little group, and one day she was just like, "Yeah, and I'm launching my." Like she put out cover art for her new children's book, and I was like, "What? That's awesome. What the heck is beautiful?" And then she's like, "Yeah, I'm releasing under my publishing company." Like just very nonchalantly, right. And I was like, that's a big deal. So we're all online, like pre-ordering our books. But how did you come about starting this publishing company? Because, for most people, it's not just like, you know what, what's today? Wednesday? Yeah, I think I'll start a publishing company today. So how did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I've always wanted to write children's books. Like, I don't know, ever since I started college. And it's not something that I took very seriously, but I've always had about, 5 or 6 titles that I've carried for years, for like 10 years, that I've always wanted to write. And I just decided, I'm tired of thinking about it. I'm tired of saying that I'm going to do it someday. I just want it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to, try to get traditionally published where, you submit your pitch or your manuscript to an agent or to a publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. Some I did not get responses. Others told me that it was not marketable because my main character I wanted it to be a diverse character, specifically a Black character.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, that's not accurate at all. There's tons of people who want to hear or who want to see, Black characters or minority characters in their stories for their kids, and if you're not a minority, you also want to expose your children,
right,
to a world of diversity. You want to see that, there are lots of ethnicities in this world, that, people are different, and we need to have, adequate representation for them. You know what I mean? So that's like one of the main reasons I started it, because it's like when someone tells me that I can't do something, I want to prove them wrong almost, So I kind of do. I just, for those 2 reasons, I started my publishing company.
I think that's amazing. And you're right. As a mom, a Black mother, like it is important to see that representation. And I love the fact that, you're like, okay, you don't think it's marketable? I will market it myself. So I'll just start my own, which is how many a great things have become, because somebody didn't see a need. And so then you create the need because it exists, right?
Exactly. Yes.
It exists. So when did you start the publishing company? Because I know that's not something that's just like, is just opening a bank account, right? There's a process that comes.
Honestly, it was during the coronavirus COVID-19, pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be home all the time with my kids and I'm just going to start this because everyone is home. And I think this is like the perfect time to kind of just, set aside some time for myself to, create something.
Right.
And it was kind of difficult setting it up during the pandemic because, everything is closed. All the administrative offices are closed, state offices, business registration, everything. So it was kind of tedious. It was a tedious process. And it took a lot longer than I thought it would. It took about, 3 months to set up, permits and, licenses and everything. But after it was all done, I was so proud of the fact that I did that, and I wanted to establish a brand for myself. I wanted to incorporate my Caribbean culture. That's why it's called, my publishing company is called Sugar Apple Books, because the sugar apple is it's like a tropical fruit that I'm very fond of and that has really, great memories associated with it. So so that's why I started my publishing company with that name. And so, it's like my baby. It's something that I'm very proud of. I put a lot of work into it, a lot of love into it. And I think that the stories, would provide, some laughter or excitement or whimsy or, whatever it is that a child can gain from it.
Right.
I want them to look at my picture book or read my picture book and have some sort of feelings and, and be able to share those feelings with their parents or, help them, overcome some issue that they're dealing with,
Right.
So that's what I want from this experience. First and foremost is that children can gain something, They can gain something from reading. They can gain something from looking at the pictures. They can learn a lesson or, they don't have to. They can just enjoy the story.
Right.
But just having them experience that and seeing themselves in a story, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
what you guys can't see, is like Valdene over here just glowing about as she's talking about this. Like you can see the passion behind this project. So I can see how much it means to you. But how do you, as a mom being home and you have a husband that has a pretty demanding career,
Yes.
How did you fit in doing all of that? Because somebody in your position might say, this is something that I really want to do, but legitimately, even with, especially with COVID, now that kids are home and, all of this, how did you manage to find the time to do that? Like, are you up working late after they go to bed? Or do you wake up extra early or do you just like work during nap times? Like, how do you get a publishing company off the ground while you have a working husband and babies?
I think you just have to carve out time for yourself. And I'll say this in the best way I can say it possibly. Like, they kind of have to help you out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You have to let them know that this is something that you want to do. And
wait, who is the them, Valdene? Who is the
your
them?
family? I mean,
Okay, let them know.
I'm talking about your husband. They need to realize that mommy needs time to do this, and you have to give me some space because I feel like my kids are so demanding right now. Even my 5-year-old, even though you would think that he can play by himself and occupy himself and have like an hour of quiet time, but no, he wants me to play with him all the time for 3 hour stints. And I'm just like, oh man, I just need to type up this email real quick. Oh, I need to sign this paperwork. Like, they have to know that we need some time to ourselves. And specifically, I think with my husband too, because we take care of so much. I take care of the household.
Say it twice.
I take care of my kids. I take care of the cleaning. I take care of everything. At least I feel like I take care of everything. So I think just letting them know that, you need some time to yourself, and it's important that I get this work done.
Yeah.
And just, planning out your day, planning out your week as much as possible. Obviously, everything is not going to go as planned.
Of course not.
But, it's just about planning. It's just about letting them know that you need that time for yourself,
Yeah. Because equally, with them having such demanding careers, there have been sacrifices that you've had to make, along the way.
Yeah.
So it's like ensuring that you ask for those things and not just assume that, okay, well, it's going to be too much right now. It's like, you don't know what's going to be too much. Ask, and try to make whatever it is that you want, make it attainable. Because I feel like we figure out so many things for everybody else, that it comes a time where, if you want to pursue something, like, it's like, now's the time. Don't wait. But I loved what you said before we got started about your why, even though you're married, not to lose your sense of self.
Exactly.
Right. And making sure you establish that identity. And so it sounds like to me, this was you said that this was something that you've always wanted to do. And so you just sort of struck while the metaphorical iron was hot.
Yeah. Honestly, I felt like, oh my gosh, like if this world is going to hell, I need to make sure that, I put my contribution out into the world while I have the time to do it. Okay. It was kind of like an epiphany. Like, I need to get this done. Like, it was kind of like that kind of moment that I had. I'm like, why am I waiting any longer? Let's do this.
Right.
Let's do this. We always make up excuses on why we're not doing something,
Mm-hmm.
but it was time. And I think too, we spent this entire journey together. My husband and I, we met in undergrad, right? And we basically, it was kind of like after the first date, we knew that, hey, we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together.
Wow.
But we really didn't know what that entailed when we added the medical journey aspect of it.
Right.
Because honestly, that it's very testing. It's a very testing journey. And, the moves, first we moved to San Antonio, then we moved to Harlingen, then we moved to Maryland, then Rhode Island. So, you feel like, as a medical spouse, I feel like you make a lot of sacrifices, and you kind of put a lot of things on the back burner sometimes, just to make everything work, just to make everything go smoothly, because their job is important. And they do need that time to study. They need that time for meetings. They need that time to reflect. They need that time to recover from burnout. But you can't lose yourself in that. You need time to recuperate as well. Like, you are also a major contributor.
Yes, you are.
And I think a lot of spouses, not just medical spouses, I'm talking about just any spouse that, especially that stays at home. I think a lot of us lose that sense of, hey, I'm contributing something worthwhile or worthy or valuable,
Right. Oh, yeah. And I think specifically to you, like, you have an added layer there. So not only like married, family, medicine, you also are like an interracial couple. And so I was interested in how, speaking of 2020 going to hell, how how you guys managed in light of, because it's not new, right? Okay, we know that Black people have historically been disenfranchised. We have historically been at a disadvantage for many, 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 many years. So
Right.
the media it's not like, oh, breaking news. Like, it's not brand new. Okay, not brand new. But how the fact that your husband is white, how is he or how has he been able to support you through that? Because I know that his eyes have been opened as well in your relationship, just seeing how you're treated differently than he is if a person were to not to know that you guys were together.
I think the biggest thing he's had to learn is how to listen.
Mm,
I feel like that's the hardest thing for someone who is not in our shoes, to listen
mm,
and to acknowledge. I think that's the biggest thing he's had. And to kind of step back and be like, hey, you don't know everything. You don't know what this experience is like. This is what I'm trying to teach you. And I would appreciate it if you listen and you take in that information and you process it and you
mhm.
realize, hey, this is not always about you.
Ooh,
And so, and I say that in the best way because I think he understands that. I think he knows now that there is, while you see it on the news or you see it, you hear about, something else happening, but when it actually happens to your spouse or to your
mhm,
child,
mhm.
then you open it, you really, you're just like, wow, like
Yeah,
it's
it's different.
personal now. It's different,
Yeah.
exactly.
They
You're
always
invested.
say it's not it doesn't matter until it hits home, right?
Exactly. So, when my son, comes home and he's like, oh yeah, these kids they're asking me, what are you?
Mm,
We have those issues as already having those questions being asked, of our children. But luckily my son is, he can stand his ground. He's always like, why would you ask me that? He would, and I love him for that because
yeah.
he's amazing. He really knows how to stand his ground. And then he told him, I am not a what, I'm a person.
You better go ahead.
Yeah, and so that's the kind of personality he is. So I'm not really worried about him. He knows how to hold his own. But you get those things happening, and you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
Not just my husband, but me as well. Like, I feel because I grew up in the Caribbean,
Mhm.
I think my experience with racism was different. I never really had to think that much about my skin color until I moved to the United States.
Wow.
And then that is when I started feeling different, like feeling, hey, like you're not equal, or, you don't belong here,
Mhm.
or, just certain situations and microaggressions. And I didn't experience that growing up. We don't have that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So obviously there's the remnants of like colonialism and like colorism. There is some of that still left over in the Caribbean, I think. But we don't have any systemic racism like we have here. We don't have to worry about, police brutality and our sons going out and never coming back because of a routine traffic stop. We don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Well, which Caribbean island are you from?
I'm from St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Okay, so we lived in Dominica, and
Okay,
I can I can truly say that living there was a completely different experience. First of all, everybody is Black unless they're like Asian, and there was some colorism thing, right? And
right.
so you do experience that, especially, well, I noticed it when I would look at the girls for Carnival. And so, that was sort of like the epitome of beauty, although they thought all women mostly were beautiful. But it was because most everybody was in the same boat, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you was super fancy if you had a car, but everybody was on the bus,
Right.
so it was not like there was no real differentiating factor. Everybody was just happy in their own lane. Everybody was a contributing member, especially within their own communities. Um, and so everybody was a contributing member. So I can see the difference there, and I can see how from your vantage point, you're like, what is this?
Yeah, exactly.
What is this? But yeah, I can definitely see that. But I'm interested because I know, and I grew up here in the States, but for a man to have to, they're naturally protective, right, of their families. But did it take your husband a special, okay, so you had to listen to be able to understand what you're going through, but then to be able to protect you from some of those situations that you guys might encounter? Like, did it require, I don't want to say additional training because that's not it, but was it a natural instinct for him? Because he loves you and he loves his children, but was it even, I guess maybe did it come from a place of recognition, like he could easily see it? Or was it something that because it never affected me, I couldn't really see it? So I don't even know what I'm protecting you from.
I think he has always been protective. I think in the beginning, for example, like when we were in med school, I remember I used to have to walk to work because I used to work for UT Health, and I used to have to walk to work, and some guys would like holler or something as I'm crossing the street.
Screaming.
And one time my husband was with me and he almost like lost it. But in terms of but I think he's always been protective, but he's also recognizes now that because I am a Black woman, I do get exposed to racism, and he is cognizant. And if we're out, he knows the situations that can happen because they've happened or I've described to him, them happening before. So he's always had my back, and I think too, my dad also kind of had a talk with him about that.
Come on, Pops.
I think he's like, you do realize that you're marrying her, you're marrying a Black woman, and you have to take care of her. And then there's a certain layer of being in an interracial marriage that you have to understand. You have to protect your wife. And I think that's something that they talked about. And, they had a beer after, and I think they were friends after that. So.
So I know we talked about it very briefly, but I'm interested to know the differences in cultures, because Caribbean families and American families do things different. Like me and you, we Black, but Caribbean families and Black American families do different things. So I can only imagine like Black Caribbeans and then like a white American family, just it would be so what are the types of things like that would be? I mean, obviously holidays are celebrated differently.
Yeah, I think I think we're a lot more relaxed in terms of Caribbean culture. A lot more relaxed and laid back, maybe not so formal. I think the food is a lot different. I think the food is a lot different. I think, we've had to kind of mesh both of our cultures. A lot of times he grew up in Texas, so he wanted pecan pie and stuff like that, and barbecue, brisket and things like that. And I'm just like, okay, I can do ribs. I know how to do ribs. I know how to do barbecue. I still don't like pies. I don't like pie. I don't like any kind of pie, really. But I make stuff. I make a lot of things. Sometimes I bake a lot, and I know he appreciates that. I bake a lot of Caribbean stuff, some stuff from here. And because I'm an immigrant and I moved here, it's kind of like assimilation, where you kind of you mesh your culture and then you mesh where you are now.
Yeah.
And so that experience has also created kind of like like a blend, like a melting pot in our family. So, some nights it's Caribbean, some nights it's whatever, American, Thai, So it's kind of like a melting pot of everything. So I think food is one of the biggest things we've had to we've had to mesh. We've had fights in the beginning about how we season our food. Like, it's crazy, crazy.
I don't even want to go there. I'm not even gonna do
Yeah.
that. No, not even gonna do it. But I believe you. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I believe you. So I want to ask you one last question that I've been asking guests this entire season, and that is, what does the Mrs. Beside mean to you? And sort of how that's either applied in your life, what it means to you personally, or whatever. There's no parameters on it.
I think what it means to me is that I do support my husband in everything he does. I make sure that a lot of things go smoothly. We work together, cooperate, we communicate. But I think it also means that you also need to be independent, and you also have to remember your sense of self, your individuality, and just learning how to work those two things together, your family obligations as well as having time for self-care. So
Yeah.
I think that's what the Mrs. Beside means to me.
Well, it's beautiful, and it's the beauty of it is there's no wrong answer because it looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
So, you guys, I have already pre-ordered my copy of Jade Braves the Dark by author and phenom Miss Valdene Mark. So it is going to be available right now. You can pre-order it. You might want to pre-order it and get your copy. But it'll be available September 15th. So Valdene, tell us how we can get a copy of Jade Braves the Dark, and I'll get all the links. Everything will be available at the time that the episode airs, so you guys will be able to go to all the outlets and you can see the links. So you can just click it and go buy the book. But please do tell us.
My children's picture book, Jade Braves the Dark, will be out September 15th. It will be available in hard copy at sugarapplebooks.com, in soft cover at barnesandnoble.com, and in a Kindle ebook format at amazon.com.
Wonderful. I can't wait. We got a hard copy book and I ordered it directly through Sugar Apple. So we will have ours shipped to the house, and I can't wait to sit down and read it with my babies. But Valdene, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you and your time and your story. It's beautiful. And I look forward to more releases under Sugar Apple Publishing. And we'll be right there to support you every step of the way. You guys have a great day. Remember, I'm proud of you. I love you and I'm rooting for you. Until next time, bye.